So I was on a podcast recently and I just noticed someone left a comment, and the topic of the conversation was going from selling your hands to selling your expertise instead. And there was a comment in here that I didn't see before, didn't even really know is on YouTube. And I just wanted to address it because it's super important. And the question was, for someone looking to transition from being a specialist in execution work to selling their advisory services, what's the most crucial first step you'd recommend taking? Thanks again for inspiring thoughts, yada, yada. Looking forward to more videos. Cool. So that's a great question, and it's part of a broader discussion that I want to get into. And so I'm just going to back my car out of this parking spot, and then we're going to talk just about that specific question now, as well as where to go beyond that first step. So what is the specific first step you need to take in order to successfully break free of selling only execution to selling advisory services instead? Well, first I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the big picture, the kind of the arc that I help marketing consultants accomplish and achieve and go down. And if you're new around here, my name is Kevin Whelan. I'm a full-time marketing strategy advisor, and I also help other marketing professionals build more profitable businesses that align with their lifestyle goals, that don't burn you out, but also can be very profitable and without scaling a big agency. So that's what we're going to get into today. And so really the path looks like, when you first get started, you're doing execution work. You're a freelancer, you're in the weeds, you're taking orders, you're just sort of doing what the client wants. As you get more advanced, you start to think more strategically. And at some point you kind of hit a plateau, and you can charge only so much per hour, per project. And you kind of run into the scenario where in order to make more, you have to work more. And you can either become an agency, or you can do what I do, which is advise, so you can at least begin the process of selling your expertise and not just your hands. So what it looks like to me is doing, managing, advising, and then teaching what you know. And teaching being the highest form of leverage. As you go across each of these steps, you can earn more in per effective hourly hour of work, if you will, and eventually break free from just trading time for money to clients, but also having more of a leveraged business that takes the knowledge out of your head and sells that either as advising, knowledge products, or otherwise. So the question here is, what is the specific first step to take when you're going from doing to advising? And that's what I want to break into a little bit with you right now. And so if I were to give you any one answer, the answer would be, first let's clarify who is eligible for doing this, because if you haven't been doing marketing for long enough and you try to fast track getting out of execution work, you're not really going to have the credibility and experience necessary to succeed as an advisor. And so, just bear in mind that you want to be in the business for a little while. You want to have mastered execution work, at least be able to get results for your clients across the channels that you're responsible for before you even think about being more of a manager and an advisor. And so the very first thing I would say, though, is that if you're wanting to sell your expertise, not just your hands, in a service capacity, you're going to want to have a clear target market. The reason for that is that there's so much information out there. You can just ask ChatGPT for literally any question you may have, and they'll give you something back that resembles some knowledge. And the more you know about the subject, the less you see the ChatGPT actually knows about the subject. But that's neither here nor there. When people are buying expertise, be it education or other forms of expertise, what they're really looking for is not just information about the horizontal thing, not just information about how to do SEO, how to do ads, how to do content. There's a place for that, especially if you're in marketing. But when it comes to serving businesses, they're really looking for industry expertise. Does this information apply to me and my business? And that's the main thing that a lot of people lack, is this idea that I can just talk about marketing and people are going to resonate and they're going to want to buy. People want a business result, and it's our job to have a clear target market so we can achieve that business result consistently for our clients, and not just do work for the sake of work, because execution work effectively is commodity work. And with the rise of ChatGPT and tools and outsourcing and offshoring and all kinds of stuff, it's sort of a race to the bottom with execution work. It's valuable, you need to know how to do it, and it's the least valuable part of this equation. So ideally what you want to be thinking is, how do I specialize in solving business problems for a specific type of customer, and then begin to think of, okay, well now how do I execute that thing, and then how do I use my learnings from the execution work that I've done to package up my processes, to package up my methods, and to prove that I can get a consistent business result by doing the work. And then I can think about maybe starting to manage or advise. And when I say manage, I mean advise and manage. So the first thing I want you to do, the very first step I would say, is begin to specialize in a specific target market. And that's going to make you not only more capable at solving their problems and getting consistent outcomes for them, but also being able to communicate and cut through the noise and to be able to market effectively. Because in this sea of information, people are looking for specificity. So we don't want more information. We want specific information to help us in our business today. And that's why I work with marketing consultants as a mentor and a teacher. And that's why I work with co-working spaces on the consulting side. It's specific, it's clear. I get consistent, predictable results for specific types of people. So if you're thinking about getting into this world where you're selling your expertise and not just your hands, the best, most important thing you can do outside of just putting in the reps and doing execution for long enough before you do this. But the next best thing is just to specialize in the industry, because you can make up for a lot of tactical inabilities if you're specialized in knowing what buttons to press, what platforms to be on, how websites should look, whether or not you should run ads, if so, which ads and how much, and all those things. So I would say if by specializing in a clear target market, you can, when you can get business results by doing that, you're in a much better position to sell your expertise. And so the next question I want to answer, and that's not asked here, and hopefully that answers the person's first question, is how do you then go from doing to managing or to advising? Some people want to make this leap and go, okay, I'm kind of tired of doing freelance work. I'd like to be an advisor. And that's fine, but typically the type of advisory that I mean is holistic in nature. You can advise on a specific channel like copywriting. However, the type of advisory that I'm talking about is holistic. I'm in the business as a consultant of getting business results for my clients, financial ones, typically growth, typically helping them acquire more customers, retain them, so on and so forth, building more profitability, positioning, all that stuff. And so I don't want to be limited to one particular channel. But that means I need to have at least a decent breadth of knowledge across all the platforms and all the different technologies and all the different methods. And the people who are best candidates for this are former in-house marketing managers who have had to just kind of do all the things and understand all the different channels, and also agency owners who have managed a broad array of services. So before I was a consultant, I ran an agency for a few years. I was doing mostly web design and development, and then supplementary marketing services on top of that, content related, SEO, ads, etc. And that positioned me to at least have the knowledge needed to be a strategist, to advise, to know who to work with, how to do jobs, how to perform them, how to bring all these pieces together for a budget that makes sense financially for the client. And so you need a breadth of knowledge if you're going to advise holistically, and your whole value proposition is I help you achieve X outcome. And ideally X outcome are things like growth or customer acquisition or reduce churn, whatever it is. Usually it's in the marketing context, it's kind of growth and sales related, but it might be different. You might be helping build marketing teams or implement tools or all kinds of stuff. But from an advisory perspective, having a breadth of knowledge of how all these channels and all these general tools work is going to help you tremendously. And so once you have a bit of experience dabbling in all the different channels and you've done a lot of work for all these different people, then you can begin to manage stuff. And the most typical form of management would be sort of a fractional CMO, which is really a hybrid of doing advising and managing. And because in a sense, you're kind of leading someone's marketing. You're doing a whole bunch of the work, although my definition of a fractional CMO is you're not doing all the work, but you are more of a manager of things. But you're probably doing at least some. You're doing a good amount of work. You're responsible for deadlines. You're responsible to move things forward. And so effectively, the value prop there is I replace the need for an in-house marketing manager until you are big enough to afford someone capable to do your marketing for you. And so that can work well. To me, I don't like to have more than one client at a time on that. And it's not really where you want to rest your business. I think there's a big movement toward fractional CMO, and I think it's a low leverage way to run a business. You still have all the stresses and cognitive load of agency work, but without the leverage and the benefits of it. However, it is one of the fastest ways to earn six figures or more. It just comes with a high degree of cognitive overhead, which means your mind is always thinking about the projects and stresses that come with moving everything forward for multiple clients simultaneously. It's a lot of work. You end up doing a lot of the work as well. You end up not having time to market yourself. It's not a great place to end up in, but it's a great place to make that first six figures. And then from there to move into more of an advisory capacity. And so if you have experience helping a specific target market to do the work, and you have experience managing the work, eventually you just you either price the management portion into oblivion, 10 grand a month, and most people won't afford it, and if they do, then great, you make good money, and so on and so forth. Or you do it for a limited period of time, which is what I recommend, an interim CMO, where you do it for 3 months and then move into an advisory capacity. But basically, you either price it into oblivion or you just stop offering it, because as long as you have a done-for-you service on your website, you're going to sell execution work. So you need to have unique specialization that goes, look, there's not that many people like me who are specialized in getting a business result for companies like yours. I've got lots of case studies, lots of results, or at least one solid case study, and ideally more. And so if you're looking for that expertise applied to your business, I can't manage it for you. I can't do it for you, but I can advise you on it. And advising is really, as I see it, is kind of like a production role. You're there to facilitate the execution work. You're there to make introductions to necessary suppliers. You're there to allocate the necessary resources so that people are working on the right things the right way, so that they can acquire customers for the right price that aligns with their allowable acquisition cost. So in the co-working world, I help co-working spaces acquire members at scale for about 1 month's rent or 2 months' rent of the equivalent product that they're selling. And that means they're getting paid back within 1 or 2 months of their marketing investment. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. And so because I'm able to get those results, because I know all the different things to do and the pitfalls and things to avoid, and I have sub-specific knowledge on websites and landing pages and email and ads and SEO and platforms and all kinds of stuff. And I know how to navigate all the nuances really, really easily. I've got templates and checklists and processes that map to all the things that most co-working spaces are going to need in their marketing. And then I basically help facilitate the outcome. So if a client needs a new website, I'm introducing, I'll help them with the concept. I'll bring them wireframes and designs, or at least examples and concepts in wireframes. We'll bring in a designer and a developer, and the developer might be overseas and he's inexpensive or whatever. And basically I help produce a result that would cost roughly the same as what it would cost to hire an agency to do it all for you, except you have my specialized knowledge embedded into your new website. I would then introduce an ads person to help with the ads component, or a writer, and various other things. And so my job is really to remove roadblocks, to make it see they're not having to interview a bunch of people, they're not having to do all this stuff. They know exactly what buttons to press when, or who should press those buttons, and how much, to manage budgets, to do, to analyze performance, and to be neutral, so that when I do introduce people, and I do recommend freelancers or suppliers, I'm not marking up their time or taking a fee or middlemanning anything. It's purely, I call it like a fiduciary level of service, where my fees are fixed, and they're not contingent on what we work on and who we hire. That way I'm neutral. So if someone I introduce, or even someone they're working with already, or someone we have to find, is not able to produce, then at least I can be impartial and make decisions around should that be the person to continue doing the work or not. And so in a nutshell, that's what advising sort of looks like. And it's not something you get into overnight. You do want to have some experience, but once you know what buttons to push, and once you know what to do, and if you've run an agency or you have a decent roster of people who can help you implement, the implementation is, as long as you know what to do and you can give clear instructions and you find good people, the implementation work is not that difficult. And really what you're doing is de-risking all of this for your clients. Your clients are spending 10, sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 a month on their marketing. And for you to de-risk how they're spending their money and who to hire and who to work with, that's really what it is, because they're not necessarily expert at all the different channels or marketing in general. And that's what makes it really challenging for them, is that they're spending all this money, but they have to kind of fend for themselves. They have to look at reports from agencies and look at proposals and hear what people are saying and trust them. It's kind of like asking your barber, hey, what do you think of my haircut? I mean, do you really trust that the barber is going to tell you the truth if they made a little mistake or they didn't really like it or whatever? These are the kind of considerations. So it allows you to be neutral and to hold everything accountable and to be impartial and help the client see the truth as best as possible, and therefore de-risk all this information that's coming at them. And then create process and systems and stuff so that it can all eventually be measured at the end of the day in a spreadsheet or a dashboard. I call it my KPI spreadsheet. And so that's it in a nutshell. That's how you advise at a high level. And it really comes down to experience in an industry, getting results for a certain kind of client. It's like anything else. If you know how to do something, you can come in and see all the patterns, and you can basically point to all the things that need to get done. And if they don't have the ability to do those things in-house, you can line up those resources and do so in a way that is coherent with their budget and aligned with what they need to spend. And then at some point, you do advising, for long enough. I started advising in 2017 and 2016 or 17, and now I do a lot of education work as well and mentoring and stuff. So that kind of happens adjacent to my consulting work. And so eventually, what you're doing is you're taking all these tools, assets, templates, and you're starting to turn them into products. Or you can, I do webinars. I do trainings and stuff. I have a membership that has all these templates and stuff for marketing consultants, so that they can basically turnkey on more of a consulting business as opposed to strictly a freelance business or an agency business. But it works in many of the same ways if you are running those kinds of businesses. But nonetheless, it's really about the business side of independent marketing, of consulting and freelancing. And so that's what I do. So that's the teaching component. But that's kind of what happens after you've done a thing for a long time. You end up getting good at and efficient at, and you've documented your knowledge and expertise. And then teaching it is just the extension of that. So when I consult, I can only work with 4 clients at any given time. And so teaching it is a way for me to reach more people, help more people. I can't always one-to-one help every single person. However, there's lightweight things like, my membership has a one-to-one Slack DM access. You can message me voice memos or text messages or all kinds of stuff, and I can get back to people privately. And there's group calls and all kinds of other stuff. But that's neither here nor there. That complements the education work. And so, in a nutshell, that's frankly I think how it works. It's you go from doing to managing, which is an easier sell than just advising. So a lot of clients don't want to get advice. They want someone to just do it for them. So managing is a great way to do that. That's the fractional CMO model in a nutshell, as long as you don't get sucked into advising. I've got all kinds of trainings on these and past videos. You can go watch those. To advising, which is way less lift, the client's managing stuff themselves. You're just facilitating and introducing and that kind of thing, to eventually teaching, and that's where you make most of your money. So people often ask me, how am I going to scale my business? I want to scale by teaching, and that's how I'm going to help more people, give a bunch away for free, and then continue to package up my best thinking, my latest thinking into my work, and then sell that as knowledge products, digital products, trainings, that kind of thing. So that's how I see it scaling. It's the information scales. Once you've really refined your methods, packaging it up, and then selling just that is kind of the last step. And then for the few people who can afford to hire you, for me it's 7 consulting clients, they get the help with implementing, and everyone else can just consume your free content or eventually your paid content. So that's kind of the pathway that I look for. The very first step, though, if you're trying to sell your expertise, is picking a target market. You can make all kinds of exceptions if you want, but at the end of the day, people will spend the most money. You'll be able to reach those people if you are specialized in helping them solve their specific problems, because at the end of the day, their business problems, their industry problems, their nuances, not just technical skills. The technical skills are easy to find. It's understanding an industry and what makes it tick and what makes customers buy in that industry is really what the value comes from. So I'll leave it there for now. Hope this has been useful. Head over to kevin.me. You can find, I've got a crash course on how to go from doing to advising to teaching right there on my homepage, and you can learn more about the membership and all kinds of other stuff. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you feel so inclined. I respond to everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe check one of these out in the meantime. Okay, bye for now.